Hello Year 5, thank you for joining me what is our final chapter of the Breadwinner today. We left chapter 14, we're finding out that Varna's father had been returned home. So we're just going to see where we go from here in our final chapter. The man who came back from prison was barely recognisable, but Pavana knew who he was. Although his white shalwar kameez was now grey and tattered, although his face was drawn and pale, he was still her father. Pavana clung to him so tightly she had to be pulled away by Mrs. Vera so that her father could lie down. We found him on the ground outside the prison, one of the men who had brought him home said to Mrs. Vera. The Taliban released him, but he was unable to go anywhere on his own. He told us where he lived, so my friend and I put him on our Karachi and brought him here. So the Karachi, remember, was like the cart that you can kind of take and carry stuff in. Pavana was down on the toshak with her father, clinging to him and weeping. She knew that the men stayed to tea, but it wasn't until they were getting up to leave to make it back to their homes before curfew that she remembered her manners. She got to her feet. Thank you for bringing my father back, she said. The men left. Pavana started to lie back down beside her father, but Mrs. Vera stopped her. Let him rest. There'll be time to talk tomorrow. Pavana obeyed, but it took days of Mrs. Vera's careful nursing before father even started to get well. Most of the time, he was too ill and weary to talk. He coughed a lot. That prison must have been cold and damp, Mrs. Vera said. Pavana helped her make a broth to feed it to her father hot off a spoon until he was able to sit up and eat. Now you are both my daughter and my son, father said when he was well enough to notice her new appearance. He rubbed his hand over her cropped hair and smiled. Pavana made many trips to the water tap. Father had been badly beaten, and the poultice badges Mrs. Vera put over his wounds had to be changed and washed frequently. Oma helped too, mostly by keeping Mrs. Vera's granddaughter quiet so father could rest. Pavana didn't mind much that she was unable to talk right away. She was overjoyed to have him home. She spent her days earning money and her evenings helping Mrs. Vera when her father felt better. She would read to him from his books. Oma knew some English from studying it in school, and one day Pavana came home from work to hear Oma and father talking English to each other. Oma hesitated a lot, but father's words flowed smoothly into each other. Did you bring us home another educated woman today? Father asked Pavana, smiling. No, father, Pavana replied. I just brought home onions. For some reason, everyone thought it was funny, and there was laughter in Pavana's home for the first time since her father's arrest. One thing in their life had been repaired. Her father was home now. Maybe the rest of the family would come back too. Pavana was filled with hope. In the market, she chased after customers like the real boys did. Mrs. Vera suggested some medicine for father, and Pavana worked and worked until she had earned money to buy it. It seemed to help. I feel like I'm working for something now, she told Shuzia one day as they walked around looking for customers. I'm working to get my family back. I'm working for something too, Shuzia said. I'm working to get away from Afghanistan. Won't you miss your family? Pavana asked. My grandfather has started to look for a husband for me, Shuzia replied. I overheard him talking to my grandmother. He said I should get married soon. Wouldn't your mother stop him? What could she do? She has to live with them. She has nowhere else to go. Shuzia stopped walking and looked at Pavana. I can't be married. I won't be married. How will your mother manage without you there? Will she eat? What can I do? Shuzia asked, the questions coming out as a wail. If I stay here, I get married and my life will be over. If I leave, maybe I'll have a chance. There must be some place in this world I can live. Am I wrong to think like this? She wiped the tears from her face. What else can I do? Pavana didn't know how to comfort her friend. One day, Mrs. Vera had a visitor, a member of the women's group who had just come out of Mazar. Pavana was at work, but father told her about the visit that evening. A lot of people have fled Mazar, he said. They are staying in refugee camps outside the city. Is that where mother is? It's possible. We won't know unless we go to the camps and look. How can we do that? Are you well enough to travel? I will never be well enough, father says, but we should go anyway. When do we leave? Pavana asked. As soon as I can arrange transport. Can you carry a message for me to the men who brought me home from the prison? I think, with their help, we can be on our way in a couple of weeks." Pavana had been waiting to ask her father something for a while. "Why did the Taliban let you go?" "I don't know why they arrested me. How would I know why they let me go?" Pavana would have been satisfied with that for an answer. Pavana would have to be satisfied with that for an answer. Her life was about to change again. She was surprised at how calm she felt. She decided it was because her father was back. "We'll find them," Pavana said with complete confidence. "We'll find them and bring them home." Mrs. Vera was going to Pakistan. "Omar will come with me. We'll put her to work there." They were going to link up with the members of the women's group who were organising Afghan women in exile. "Where will you stay?" "I have a cousin in one of the camps," Mrs. Vera replied. "She has been wanting me to come and live with her." "Is there a school there?" "If there isn't, we'll start one. Life is very difficult for Afghans in Pakistan. There is a lot of work to do." Pavana had an idea. "Take Shuzia with you." "Shuzia?" "She wants to leave. She hates it here. Couldn't she go with you? 'Cause she could be your escort." "Shuzia has a family here. Do you mean to say she would just leave her family, desert the team just because the game is rough?" Pavana said no more. In a way, Mrs. Vera was right. That was what Shuzia was doing. But Shuzia was also right. Didn't she have a right to seek out a better life? Pavana couldn't decide who was more right. A few days before they were to leave for Mazar, Pavana was sitting on the blanket in the marketplace when something hit her on the head. It was a tiny camel made out of beads. The window woman was still alive. She was all right, or at least well enough to let Pavana know she was still there. Pavana wanted to jump up and down and dance. She wanted to yell and wave at the painted window. Instead, she sat quietly and tried to think of a way to say goodbye. She was almost home that afternoon when she thought of a way. Heading back to the market after lunch, she carefully dug up some wild flowers that were growing among the bombed-out ruins. She had seen them growing there in other years and hoped she was right in thinking they were the kind that grew there year after year. If she planted the flowers in a spot where she usually put her blanket, the window woman would know she wasn't coming back. The flowers would be something pretty to look at. She hoped they would make a good present. In her spot in the market, Pavana dug up the hard soil first by pounding into it with her ankle. She used her hands too, as well as a rock she found nearby. The men and boys in the market gathered around to watch her. Anything different was entertainment. "Those flowers won't grow in that soil," someone said. "There are no nutrients in it. Even if they grow, they'll be trampled. The marketplace is no spot for flowers. Why are you planting them there?" The voices of derision came another voice. Through the voices of derision came another voice. "Do none of you appreciate nature? This boy has undertaken to bring a bit of beauty into our grey marketplace, and you thank him? Do you thank him? Do you help him?" An old man pushed his way to the front of the little gathering. With difficulty, he knelt down to help Pavana plant the flowers. "Afghans love beautiful things," he said. "But we have so much ugliness, we sometimes forget how wonderful a thing like a flower is." He asked one of the tea boys hovering nearby for some water from the tea shop. It was fetched, and he poured it around the flowers, soaking the earth around them. The plants had wilted. They didn't stand up properly. "Are they dead?" Pavana asked. No, not dead. "They look scraggly and dying now," he said, "but the roots are good. When the time is right, these roots will support plants that are healthy and strong." He gave the earth a final pat, and Pavana and one of the others helped him up. He smiled once more at Pavana, then walked away. Pavana waited by her flowers until the crowd had gone. When she was sure no one was watching, she looked up at the window and waved a quick goodbye. She wasn't sure, but she thought she saw someone wave back. 2 days later, they were ready to leave. They were going to travel by truck, just as the rest of the family had done. Am I travelling as your son or your daughter? Pavana asked father. "You decide," he said. "Either way, you will be my little Malali." Look at what's here, Mrs. Vera said. After making sure the coast was clear, she took several copies of Mother's magazine out from under her burqa. Isn't it beautiful? Pavana flipped through the magazine quickly before hiding it again. It's wonderful, she said. Tell your mother that copies are being sent out to women all over the world. She has helped to let the world know what is happening in Afghanistan. Be sure you tell her that. What she did was very important. And tell her we need her back to work on the next issue. I'll tell her. She gave Mrs. Vera a hug. Both Mrs. Vera and Omar were wearing burqas, but she could tell by hugging them who was who. It was time to leave. Suddenly, just as the truck was ready to pull out onto the road, Shuzia appeared. You made it, Pavana said, hugging her friend. Goodbye, Pavana, Shuzia said, and handed Pavana a bag of dried apricots. I'm leaving soon too. I met some nomads who will take me to Pakistan as a shepherd. I'm not waiting until next spring. It will be too lonely here without you. Pavana didn't want to say goodbye. When will we see each other again? She asked in panic. How will we keep in touch? I've got it all figured out, Shuzia said. We will meet again on the first day of spring, 20 years from now. All right. Where? The top of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. I told you I was going to France. Pavana laughed. I'll be there, she said. We won't say goodbye then. We'll just say so long for now. Until next time, Shuzia said. Pavana hugged her friend one last time, then climbed into the truck. They waved to each other as the truck rolled away. 20 years from now, Pavana thought. What would happen in those 20 years? Would she still be in Afghanistan? Would Afghanistan finally have peace? Would she go back to school, have a job, be married? The future stretched unknown down the road in front of her. Her mother was somewhere ahead with her sisters and her brother, but what else would they find? Pavana had no idea. Whatever it was, she felt ready for it. She even found herself looking forward to it. Pavana settled back in the truck beside her father. She propped a dried apricot in her mouth and rolled its sweetness around her tongue. Through the dusty front windshield, she could see Mount Pavana, the snow on its peak, sparkling in the sun. And that's it. That's how the story ends. Be really interested to hear your thoughts on the book. And even if that's how you thought the book was going to end, or did you have another idea as to how it might have ended? I think there are some others that are in this series, or they're either short stories related to this alongside it, but I will go and check. I know Miss Collier's had them in her classroom as well. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will let you know what we'll be reading next.